Okay, well, this is a short video, I hope, on how to do venison stroganoff. Classic recipe. Nothing's going to change for that recipe except that we're going to use venison. Here's two nice pieces of ham meat. They've been in the freezer. I thawed them and cut off as much of the sinew that I can. And we're going to cut it into chunks and then tenderize it and start the process making beef stroganoff. First of all, I'm going to cut these pieces into manageable size. Probably a better part of an inch thick. Do them all about like so. You can see this is a real nice cut of a ham of a white-tailed deer. And I'm going to cut them all uniformly about like so. And what my next step will be, I'm going to make sure I get as much sinew and no fat at all. The fat can be distasteful. But the next step after I get them cut into these sizes will be to use this Jacquard meat tenderizer. It has all these little knives that stick through. It's not expensive. You can buy it on the internet. And just to tenderize the meat. And just kind of pop it a few times. Flip it over. Tenderize it again. I don't think you can really tenderize it too much. I don't want the meat to completely fall apart, but I want it tender. Nobody likes meat that's not tender. And cut them into manageable chunks that way, tenderize them. Then I'm going to cut the stroganoff pieces into chunks about like so. Inch squares maybe. You don't want them too small. About like this. Just manageable, nice chunks. And I'll come back after I've cut all this meat into these type sizes and have tenderized it. Okay, so I've cut all the venison. There's probably 4 pounds here in the nice chunks. This is for a dinner for about 6 people. There'll be some left over, but I don't care because it's great left over too. After you've got it cut like this, I'm going to take it and I'm going to just dust it in flour. And this is, it might seem silly, but what we're going to do here is dust it, and then we're going to brown it in flour in a skillet as we do our vegetables. So that's this next process here. It's just a pot with a lid, a little bit of flour in there, just enough to kind of cover the meat so that when we fry it, it'll brown real pretty. And I'll show you that step in just a moment. Get all this meat in there. I'll put a lid on this and roll it around with a lid. Pretty much like this. Upside down. They make breading containers that do the same thing, do a great job, but this is what I have. I couldn't find the one I was looking for. But after that's nice and flopped around in the flour, we're going to heat a good iron skillet and start browning these babies. And I'll show you that step in just a moment. Oh, that one hopped out of there. And we're starting to look like you'd want beef chunks to look for stroganoff. And trust me, venison, any good type of venison. Elk and moose are probably the best, but deer certainly is wonderful. And it makes by far the best stroganoff you've ever eaten. If you like stroganoff, you're going to like venison done this way. All right, well, we've moved over to the stove. I've got this up on medium-high. This is about 3/4 of a sweet onion. I use Vidalias because they're not far from me and I'm connected with the grower. And minced onion, probably 3 or 4 cloves of onion. And there's olive oil in the pan. The recipe calls for butter, but I'm health conscious like I guess everybody, so I use olive oil. And we're going to put in these mushrooms. And we're just going to stir it around and let them kind of cook down. I'll put tinfoil over this so they kind of steam. We're just trying to get them soft. And once we get them soft, we're looking good. This is about half the mushrooms I've got. I got some more. I'm going to put those in because I love mushrooms. And I'm making a double batch of stroganoff anyway. And once these cook down, we'll go to the next step. Boy, it smells great. Wish you could be here. Okay, I'm going to give this a quick check. Yeah, it's cooking down pretty nice. It's kind of simmering. I'm just trying to reduce the bulk of the mushrooms and the onions. It just smells great. Garlic is just awesome. And what I'm going to do is take the vegetables and put them into a small container here, Tupperware container, and move them off to the side, and then I'll start to do my my venison chunks and brown those, and I'll come back and add this later. That's the next step. Well, all right, into our frying pan now. I put some more olive oil to help brown this venison, and these chunks have been lightly coated in flour just to help them brown a little bit. And we're just going to roll them into the skillet, big iron skillet, and kind of roll them around. Understand this is a double batch for a big group of hungry people. I have made this in deer camps, and it seems that no matter how much you think you made, it's never enough. And if there is anything left over, it gets hit pretty hard the very next day. And incidentally, each time you reheat this, it seems to get better and better and certainly more tender. Again, this is on medium heat. I'm just trying to brown the meat a little bit before I turn everything down low and let all these great flavors start to meld. Don't want to crowd this pan too much. It's already browning a little bit. I wish there was some way that YouTube viewers could witness the aromas coming off this. It is just really, really good. Some of that garlic is still in the pan from when I did the onions and mushrooms, and boy, it smells just great. Meat's going to be very, very tender. Okay, after this gets browned, I'll show you what we do next with it. Okay, so this venison cubes has been browning for a few minutes and covered. What we're trying to do is just get them nice and brown. They're looking good. And the next step here is I'm going to take the meat out of this pan. If you put it in the same pot with the vegetables, say you're going to cook them, clean the pots later, and I'm all for doing that rather than have to spend all evening cleaning up after this. It's really not going to be dishes. But I'll put this in the same pot that I put the vegetables. The venison has been removed from the pan, and the next step is we add a cup of nice dry red wine. A Merlot would be nice, something nice to cook with. 1 cup You can add a little more if you choose. Again, it's a double recipe. And while beef consomme works fine, I like unsalted beef stock. And I just pour this in until it gets happy. Probably half. This is what, 24 ounces? 32 ounces. I might put in, about that much. And stir it around, mix it up nice. Again, the heat is off this pan. There's some nice cookings in the bottom there. Nothing burned, of course. And I can smell it. The wine's cooking off a little bit. I might add a little more beef stock. Again, canned beef consomme is just fine. It's just that I have this available and I like the stock. Then the next step is to add about 16 ounces of sour cream. Now, this pan is cool, and that's important. If you put this into a hot pan, the sour cream can curdle, and that is definitely a no-no. So what I'm going to do here is slowly bring the heat up. Put it on medium-high. Try to get this sour cream to start to break down a little bit. Now, with a normal recipe, I would, once this sour cream melts and gets completely broken down, I would put the venison cubes, the chunks, which are now in a pot. I've put them over here in a pot. They're in that stock pot. And I've got the vegetables in another container. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to finish this recipe because I've made such a large batch, which is not a bad thing, trust me, in this large stock pot. Once this cooks down a little bit and the sour cream melts nicely, I'm going to pour this into that stock pot along with the vegetables. And then we're going to let it slow cook for as long as possible, because the longer it cooks, the better it's going to taste in that pot. This is something that can be done in a hunting camp in a Dutch oven, cooking all day long. And don't be the last guy back in camp, because there won't be any left. So I'm just going to let this cook down, kind of come up slow until all that sour cream melts. Okay, this has been cooking a little while. It's moderate heat, not quite medium. And it is this melting, the sour cream's melting. That's all I'm waiting for it to do. Try to get it to where I can get it back up to heat. And this little whisk, nifty little whisk, I don't know where it came from, but it works real nice. Just kind of breaking down the sour cream. As this slowly comes up to heat, this is going to be just great. We want all that sour cream broken up. And you want the heat to come slowly to the sour cream so it doesn't curdle. This is the only time that you really have to worry about that. Once the sour cream mixes in there with the wine, it's going to be just fine. It's starting to come on pretty good now. Now what I'm going to do at this point is starting to get a little warm. Let's see how. Yeah, it's coming up a little bit. It's not, I still taste the wine, so it hasn't been hot enough to cook the wine off. But it's coming up. I'll let it heat a little bit longer, get a little warmer. But then what I'm going to do is pour this into the stock pot, add the vegetables, stir it around a little bit, cover it, and let it simmer. And I'll show you that here shortly. Okay, it's time to check on our stroganoff here. Here's this is the sour cream. Whoops, a little splash there. Perfectly good, broken down. It's slightly warm, and now I can add, instead of adding the meat and adding the vegetables to this pan, I'm going to add the wine and sour cream to the stock pot where I have venison waiting, and put the vegetables in there also. And I'll show you that process after I put everything into the stock pot. All right, what I've done here is pour the vegetables into a stock pot with the venison that's been browned. And the vegetables are soft. And I'm just stirring that up, mixing it nice. And then I'm going to go back to the stove and get the sour cream, consommé, and wine, and pour that in here and start mixing it up and put it back on the stove. I have put the sour cream, wine, and beef stock into this stock pot with the cubed venison. And now I'm going to put it back on the stove on just a touch over low heat and let this simmer for 2-3 hours and let everything kind of break down and meld, and we'll check back on it then. Okay, we're all done here with the venison stroganoff. That's what it looks like. All done, ready to go. What we're going to do is put it with little mashed potatoes. You could use noodles or wild rice, which is great. Back here we've got green beans with the mushrooms, but the piece de resistance is the venison stroganoff. And we'll see how that ladles out here directly. Looks very tender. Alright, so we've put our venison stroganoff on a table, and we've got various accoutrements here. There's mashed potatoes, we've got green beans, and the family's ready to jump in. You look very famished. Part of the this is a birthday party here too. So part of the success here is to get everybody very hungry, and then they're going to love it. It's a build-up. So they'll dish it up, and we'll get some reaction here in a minute. All right, here's the first taste test of the beef. Oh, come on!
It was good.
How yum is that? What do you think?
It's awesome.
You're the one who doesn't really eat venison much.
It's awesome. Really good.
Does it taste just like some more?
Yeah?
That's what I thought.
Some more?
Yeah, some more venison.
Some more
Some more beef, some more venison
on
stroganoff.
my
What it tastes like.
That I'm about to eat.
Lo?
Well, I didn't taste it yet,
Well,
so
give
I'm
me a
going to
little
try this
taste
my
test over
first
there.
time.
All right, good.
Here we go.
You don't even eat venison.
No, here we go.
Okay.
Ready?
Don't lie now. No lying.
Have to smell it.
There's no lying. No, there's no lying here. Tell the truth.
Mmm. It's really good.
Well, I'm really delighted. Michael?
It's very good.
Michael,
it's so
have you
tender.
I am ready to dig in.
Have you had venison ever?
Not for a long time. But
Okay,
I can
good.
tell
Very
you-
tender. Mmm.
But I never had it like this. This is delicious.
Good
Oh,
job.
good.